Okay.
Let me know when you press it because I'm looking at the
I
word.
pushed it.
Okay. All right. So we have special guests today, which are us. If you haven't caught on by now, everyone is a special guest and everyone's going to catch.
But you've been calling everybody a special guest, and you've been saying lately extra, extra
Yes,
special.
extra, extra special because I already realized I call people special guests. Everybody gets special guests, but then I'm like, okay, if special is the default, how do I make them feel even better? They are an extra special guest. So
Mm.
it's us today. That's the point. And this is part 2 of a series. It'll have about 9 or 10 parts, most likely 10. And these are a peek into academic life. This is a series that we're calling Young, Gifted, and Black-ademic. And this is something that we want to use to just demystify a lot of the academic process, especially if you're a graduate student, you're considering a PhD, if you're thinking about going into academia, getting tenure, because we are in those phases or have done those phases. So
Girl.
we and it's completely different. And there's lots of resources out there already, but the thing that differentiates us is that we are Black and we have a whole different experience. We're also women. We're also in a STEM field. And, we're at PWI. So there's lots of nuances about our experience that we would like to share with y'all. So, as I said, these are based on our experiences. So your mileage may vary. And all right, we're just going to get it started. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is
Wait, what are we talking about today?
girl. I sent you the notes. I sent you
That's
notes and
not
I
what I
read you the
mean.
questions on our last
I'm
talk.
not asking for myself,
Oh,
child.
oh, oh, oh. I don't know what it's about. Hold on. Let me think of a way to encompass it all. Okay. So, to Allison, can you edit all that out? Thank you. So today, our topic more so deals with making the decision to go to graduate school or to get into
Mm.
a PhD program because everyone doesn't necessarily know, if this is right for you. And we're not here to be the people who are the gatekeepers to say, yes, you're this kind of person, so you should do it. And no, you're not this kind. But we can tell you some things about graduate school because you don't learn a lot about it in other areas of life, including actual like undergrad, even though occurs at the exact same place. They're two completely different lives. And
Mhm.
Jeremy can definitely tell you that because she did undergrad and grad at the same place, and they were two different worlds.
Night and day. Night and day.
Right. So we want to talk to you about just making that decision, choosing a grad school, things you can do to make yourself stand out, finances, real life, things like that. So first, let's just jump into what is grad school all about? Like what makes grad school or a PhD program different than undergrad? What do you think, Jeremy?
I mean, a PhD program, I feel, is a little bit easier to describe to people. Like, I am in intensive training to be an expert in something. And ultimately, the goal is for me to walk out of there as the foremost expert in whatever I chose to study. And that's like not a thing that people tell you. Like, when you leave your PhD program, you are going to be the most knowledgeable person in your discipline about X, Y, and Z, whatever it is that you've decided to research, which is kind of intimidating, but then it's also kind of baller at the same time. Like
Right.
it's super baller. Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
So,
Yeah, you're supposed to be the expert. I would also add, like, for me, it was more so the questions or the depth of which you were expected to understand things. And I
mhm.
felt like in undergrad, it was, hey, here is math class, know how to do this. Hey, this is, here's information, regurgitate it back to me on a test so I know that you know it. I felt like
Mhm.
grad school was, yeah, here's the information. Yeah, you know it, but apply it to this other thing that you've never seen before, or
Mm.
learn how to work with gray area or things that are undefined. So I felt like it took undergrad to a whole nother level because it was not even about the knowledge, it was the application of that knowledge.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I also like tend to describe to people, a lot of people go on to get master's degrees and they want to know like what differentiates a master's degree from a bachelor's degree. And in my opinion, it's, I mentioned this in the prior episode, like there are certain things that they have to expose you to in your discipline for them to meet the criteria they need to meet for a governing body that says, like, engineers must know X, Y, Z, or
Right.
ABC through XYZ.
And then they throw some numbers in, A1, B1, C1.
Right, right, right. Um, and so, like, they're just trying to give you that information, and you may or may not grasp it. And depending on the type of instructor you have, they may not actually know how to measure whether you've grasped it. But at the graduate school level, like once you do the coursework, like for your master's degree, it's a different ball game. They really want to ensure that you understand the concepts. And like for me, I think they consider you a colleague more than they consider you a student. Because oftentimes, even with master's degrees, you get a lot of people who come back to do those. And so they are a more professional degree program than they are, you know, I don't know, something for children who have just gotten out of high school that
That's a
are
good
trying to check
point.
off a box.
Yeah. That's a good point. It's I remember my first test in grad school, like, I did not stop writing the entire time.
Hmm.
And I was like, "The magnitude of work and things that you all would like us to do," but, not even just the coursework, like, Jeremy was talking about, like, also the research and being, like, the foremost expert. I would even say, you have to be able to work well with uncertainty and,
Mhm.
like, mapping out problems, or someone gives you a problem and mapping out a solution. And it's not saying, oh, you need to know the solution right away,
No, yeah.
but you need to know how to get the answer in a way that makes sense. So, relying on other research, like my dissertation advisor, he's like, it's called research for a reason. Like, it's not search where you just Google it and find out. It's like if you could just figure it out, the quick Google is called just search, but research is you iteratively solve this problem and use the things that you know. And that
Yeah.
was definitely a huge, I never had to do that. I was like, okay, X equals 2. That is the answer. But it's like,
There's
what is X?
methods
Yes.
that you have to use to figure things out, and nobody teaches you any of those methods
Right.
unless you're like an undergraduate researcher, in which case that's a varies by who you work for scenario. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
absolutely.
totally different.
So let's say a person is like, you know what, grad school is amazing to me. That sounds great.
Wait, wait, wait. Can I
Uh-huh.
just say this
Oh,
really
yeah,
quickly?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I just
Go for
thought
it.
about it. Like, I think the other thing is, you go to class and then you go home and you study for your test, right? Like that's what undergrad feels like. And then you do fun stuff when you have time. But if you go to a graduate program and you choose to be someone engaged in research, you don't just go home. Like you have a
Right.
job. So
Right.
you go to class and then you go to the lab and then you spend however much time you need to spend in the lab and then you go home and you do homework and maybe do some more stuff for the lab.
Right.
And then also the other thing is, we do a lot of work to showcase what we found in our research to our colleagues and to the general public. And so you have to go to conferences and meetings and things of that nature to present your work.
Mhm.
So you have to get comfortable with traveling and presenting and talking to people and explaining things that are typically very complex in ways that other people can understand them. So, I mean, there's different layers. We can talk about that. So I think that's important to mention too.
That is an excellent, excellent point. So if you're listening to that point, you're like, yes, sign me up for this grad school thing. How do you pick the right grad school? So for
I
you,
can't
Jeremy,
answer
like,
that.
well, how did you choose? I mean, you had options. Why did you choose to stay at UF instead of, hey, I'm gonna go somewhere else?
I think this is really ironic that you're asking me this question because I am currently not feeling my greatest. And it's
Mm, sorry.
because of the same issue that ultimately led to me staying at UF. So,
Oh wow.
um, yeah, I struggle with a lot of gastrointestinal health issues. At the time of me applying to graduate school, I had no idea what was going on. Like, I just knew my body was losing its mind, and I I'm gonna spare you the details. But I have 3 different conditions that I was ultimately diagnosed with over the course of, like, 6 months.
Man.
And so I often couldn't go to class. I had a lot of work that I had to catch up on, and was in and out of doctor's offices a lot. So I, I think it was just too much. Like, there was too much happening all at once, and it was my senior year, and I was, involved in student organizations and doing all the things, and I was like, "Nah."
Right, I can't put nothing else on my plate right now.
Yeah, like, it's just sometimes life happens that way, where it's just like the clear answer for me is to not add additional stress
Yeah.
to what's going on, and I think being able to recognize that was really important for me, in terms of growth. Like, I felt like, "Oh, I'm an adult now, like, I made an adult choice." Because the real, like really inside of me, like, I was not trying to be in Gainesville, Florida. I'm in my spirit, I'm still not really trying to be here,
Hilarious.
but I'm still here. So it was a hard choice, but that was what drove that decision. Now there's a whole other story about how I changed from a master's degree to a PhD, which we could talk about, but
Yeah, go into it. Let's hear it.
I mean, I feel like they should hear
Okay, I'll
your
say my
decision
part.
process.
So I would say for me, what's the word? I like support. So when I was in undergrad, I had an awesome support system through my scholarship program at UMBC, the Meyerhoff Scholarship Program. And I felt like that's what college needs to be like for everybody. Like I was really, I mean, I know other schools don't have it, but like I just wasn't I didn't know how little support there was out there. So when I was looking for grad schools, in the back of my mind, I was like, I need to find where I'm going to be supported. So I went to like different visits at different schools. And for some reason, when I went to Michigan, like, and it wasn't even an overt program that someone, did or an interaction. It was literally me observing the grad students. And they were just like 1 or 2 years above me. And they were like, oh, did you find a research person for the summer? Oh, you didn't talk to this person. And they were so invested in each other's lives and like what was
Mm,
going on. I'm just watching them because, I got to whatever little reception we had early. And I'm like, okay, I'm just watching the students already there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they care about each other the way that I can see this conversation happening, exactly where I just came from. And then
mm,
once I met them, it was like, oh, what's your phone number? Okay, these are the classes you need to take. So I was like, okay, I feel like I would have family here. So I'm
mm,
not saying that's everywhere, but you might just see that in a research lab, you might observe it somewhere. But like for me, it was about support. It was
mhm,
also about notoriety. So, Michigan, every program they had was in the top 10 when I got there. And so I was like,
mm.
even if I don't want to do computer science anymore, I can jump into something else and switch majors and still be at a school that has a program in the top 10. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like, okay, this is not a bad choice. And also it was not on my radar. I was not trying to go
Hmm.
there, but um yeah, good program. The research that was going on, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Well, I had an idea what I wanted to do. I just didn't know it wasn't research. So it was a project. The idea of what I wanted to do for research was a project, but it wasn't actually research. But hearing about all the stuff going on, I was like, oh, okay, I have stuff that I'm interested in that I could pick from.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was the research, community, just support. I think those were like the big things for me, their notoriety.
Yeah, I think all of those things are really important to consider. I've worked with a lot of undergraduate students, helping them try to make that transition. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about is supporting people through mentoring. And
Mhm.
I have served as either a peer mentor for several research programs at the University of Florida. So we have one that's through the graduate school that they run. There's also our Ronald E. McNair Scholars Program.
Mhm.
And so I served as a peer mentor for that for
I
several
have my
years.
first McNair scholar in my lab, and I'm
Oh,
so excited.
yay!
I was like, "Hey, Karine." I'm so excited.
And then, Yeah, she was one of my students, by the way. I wrote her
Really?
recommendation letter, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, then there's
You see
yeah,
community.
I'm telling you. Um, she actually sent me a note to tell me thank you for writing her letter and that she got in,
Mhm.
so I'm super excited for her. But there's also, you know, being a part of people's trajectories is just important for me. So I got to help a lot of people navigate the system of pursuing graduate studies, and it's been really cool to like help support their decision making process because there are a lot of things to consider, right? Like, are you going to thrive in -10-degree weather and
Right.
you are from the country of Haiti?
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes, like,
Maybe
you'll have
not.
adjustment issues that have nothing to do with, like, your actual aptitude as a student. It's all about your environment, your climate, where you are. Yeah.
Cost of living is important to consider. Like, are you going to be able to afford to live where you're moving? And, is the stipend enough for you to live how you want to live? Like, some people don't want to live with other people.
Mhm.
Or you can't go to the school that is that
Right.
is in California because
You gonna have a
even
roommate.
yeah, even professionals have roommates over there.
Right.
So you have to think about like and prioritize what matters. And to some people that's not a big deal, but to other people that's a deal breaker. And I think that's important to note for some people.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay, so assume someone has an exact program they wanna go into, they love what grad school's about. What advice would you offer just, like, for someone who's like, "I'm about to walk in the door for grad school," like, things they should keep in mind? Like, so one thing I think of is, like, um, your why, like, knowing why you're doing this. Because
Mhm.
your why is definitely like the thing that's gonna keep you motivated because your research is gonna piss you off. You're gonna have days where something's not working, you can't figure something out, or you don't feel like going in because you've had enough of looking at the same thing over and over, but your why is the thing that motivates you. And sometimes some people's whys are just, "Oh, I just wanna hear people call me doctor." And
Mm.
that's not gonna get you, at least for me, when I was at Michigan, I was like, I'm glad that I love computer science because and I like helping people because it is cold and it is icy, and I would not be out here on this bus trying to take a bus to walk to then take another bus to walk some more. Like I would
Child,
not be doing
no.
that. If I didn't really love this. So that's like one piece of advice that I would give someone is to like know your why and like make sure that your why is something that will wake you up when you don't feel like doing what you need to do.
The advice that I always give students, and I think it would be true of myself not to share this on the podcast, is to be your own advocate.
Mhm.
Um, I think that we are, as Black women, kind of trained to just fix it ourselves, like figure it out on our own. Like, we're capable, we can do all the things. You can't do all the things. I'm sorry. Like, I'm just gonna let y'all know you can't do all the things.
Right.
You will burn out. You will not be, it's not sustainable, right? And I think understanding what you need and being able to advocate for yourself is the single most important skill that you can learn in life. And it's a hard lesson to learn if you haven't already done so once you hit grad school, because
Yeah.
there are going to be days where you need somebody else.
Yeah.
There might be seasons.
Exactly.
And if you can't articulate what it is that's going to help you be successful, it's really hard to be successful.
And not being afraid to make that known to
Yeah,
others.
yeah. Like, it could just be I have a lot of data and I need to run some statistics and I haven't done statistics in a long time. Can you help me like think through what analysis I should use to get the data that I need? It
Yes.
could be
That's
I am
Jeremy, that's, like, exactly the conversation I had with one of my good friends, Banga. I have to tell this story where he's a math and statistics, PhD. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I have this stuff, blah, blah, blah," and he's helping me, run all the stats, and I'm like and it's like, "Oh, the first I was like, "Something's in the upper quantile?" He's like, "Quantile?" It's like quantile was the way that I was pronouncing it because, again, this is his area, not mine. He was very, very nice about it. It was like
Oh.
quanta. But for me, if I had just been super like, I can't ask for help, I can't, advocate for myself and say what I need. But yes, that is my story. But ask about the quantiles, no matter how wrong you are. Because I got my data analyzed, didn't I? And I know what a
Yeah,
quantile
you
is.
sure did. I mean, it's that. It could be like, I really think that I need to go to this conference because, I want to present, but I don't have anything to present yet. So it would be great for me to get exposure to what is accepted and the caliber of research that I need to do. But my advisor doesn't have funding. Is there a place that I can get the support to go?
Yeah.
There's so many different asks that you might have, and if you don't ever ask, you will never, potentially never, get the option or the opportunity to capitalize on the opportunities that are available in grad school, because there's so many.
There's
Like,
so many resources.
I
And
studied abroad in grad school. People don't talk about that as being an option.
mhm.
That's an option. Like, you can do internships in grad school. In computer science is very common.
Oh yeah.
It's not so common in other disciplines, but it's very common.
And then also people don't know what you need because oftentimes
Oh
like
yeah.
someone will be sitting on resources and they might have sent 10 emails out and they kind of fell on deaf ears. But
Mhm.
if you make known what you need, you'd be surprised how many people who have access to that would be willing to help you. But they can
Yeah.
never help you if they don't know what you need.
Yeah. Even if it's just, I don't know how to write.
Right.
Okay. We can help that. We can help with
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, I can tell tens of thousands of stories of just me talking about what I'm doing to someone and my pain points, and then being like, "Did you talk to such and such?" And then such and such literally having exactly what I needed. So don't feel like you need to suffer in silence, because that's
Hmm.
basically all you're gonna do.
Pretty much.
The other thing I will add is like, you should be comfortable with things being subjective because I've never been in such an area where the opinions of other people determine how well you do. And we're
Mm.
taught in life, don't care about what other people think about you, but to a
That is
degree,
so real.
to a degree, you do need to care what people think about you in terms of like your research, because you're submitting grant proposals, you're submitting papers, and papers are evaluated by people. So people have opinions. So you can't take it to heart. Somebody might be having a bad day. They may not even want to read your paper, but they agreed to do it. And
Mm.
people look for opportunities to misunderstand your work. So that's why I'm
Mhm.
really super hard on my students about being clear and concise. But all that to say, there's a lot of subjectivity. And if you're a person who feels like, oh, someone doesn't like my work, they hate me. Done. You can't have the dramatics. You gotta roll with the punches and say, okay, they didn't like it. Oh, guess what? It came with a whole list of stuff that I can change so it can be liked next time. So
But don't count on that,
yeah.
because then you get a whole other group of people who are like, "Well, go back to what it was," and then,
Yeah, and then
anyways,
because
that's
you
just
can
my
point that out to the
personal.
editor, because that's another thing
Mhm.
too. I had a journal article in, like, one of the most prestigious journals in my area, and they asked me for one thing, and it was like, "There's too much detail here. Cut it back. People can look at the details in the paper." I cut it back, sent it again. "Oh, you didn't explain this process." It was in the first paper. So then I just copied that correspondence and gave it to the editor and was like, "I'm sorry, what would you like me to do? Because this says the opposite." And he was like, just send in what you have. This is perfect. And he fast tracked it. So all that to say, this even the subjectivity, like if I had let that get to me, I could have been like, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to kill this paper. But you know,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So we've decided we're going to grad school. We have all the great advice in the world. when I'm applying for grad school, what role does social media play?
Oh
Like,
my
how can I use
gosh.
that to my advantage?
Oh,
Because,
okay.
well, no, so this, what would you think I was about to say?
Kyla gets in trouble, y'all. I'm
I
just gonna put
don't
it out there.
anymore.
She look. I had to start regulating some things and telling her,
I
"You gonna
send
take that
Jeremy
down."
stuff.
I
I'll be like,
became
I'm
her
not gonna
mom.
post this, but you got to see this. I'll be like, I'm not gonna post it, but look at it.
And I think people can tell from listening to the podcast, like who you are and who I
Yes, I feel like if there's a post, people could definitely tell whose voice, who wrote what, or who made what, whose idea
am.
was what.
But I was so reluctant to do this whole social media adventure because there's a lot of power in it, but anything that has a lot of power can be used for good or evil.
Yeah,
And I feel like sometimes, depending on how you leverage social media, you can get into a lot of trouble and it's not worth it for a tweet,
yeah.
for
For a
what,
reaction,
120
for a,
characters. Like, it's not worth it to change the trajectory of your life. So
it's true.
I police my postings as much as possible. Sometimes I like type stuff out and delete it and just be like, no one needed to see that.
Right. Like I got it
But
out of my system and now it's erased.
yeah, and then also my mom is my person who like tells me to take stuff down. So she's
And your
always
parents are
watching.
both like on social media.
No,
Well,
it's
I don't
just
know. No,
my
no, it's your mom, but she's on your dad's account.
shh, don't
Oh,
tell
sorry,
anybody
sorry.
that.
Erase that part out. I'm kidding. Keep it innocent.
I just think it's important to like know people do watch that. They do see what you say. I have people come up to me all the time and say like, "Oh, I saw you on Twitter and I saw you on Instagram." So, if you do have open accounts, like think about what you share with other people cuz
Yeah.
it can be used for good or for evil.
Absolutely. I definitely know like there's times when let's say we're going through applications and like the PhD program is a lot smaller than undergrad. So nobody has time to go through millions of social media posts of undergraduates. But if I don't know anything about you and your application has minimal details, I might just Google you to see like who is this
What
person?
pops up?
Yes, and there's been times I'm like, "Ooh, that's you? Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
Okay." But you can use it to your advantage because if you know people are going to be looking for you, make yourself when you are findable, make yourself look like someone who is attractive to graduate schools. Like, I think Twitter is great because you can engage in all these different conversations around different research topics. So if I stumble upon your information, it leads me to a Twitter account and I see you having awesome conversations about the area that I work in and you're applying to be in this area. I'm like, oh, this person's
Mhm.
already doing the work. This looks good versus, you talking about Taco Bell all the time or something.
You could talk about Taco Bell. Taco Bell is non-controversial.
That's true.
Uh,
Non-controversy is better, yes. Or
but
don't have anything up. That's the other thing.
yeah, just it's okay to like have opinions and be yourself on social media, but like you really don't want it to be something that's a poor reflection on your character or on like your employer, right? Like you're going to be working for this person. This is your employer. So, um nobody really wants to have an employee who's
A loose cannon.
not a loose cannon is probably a good way to phrase it. Yeah, but could be detrimental to the brand of the company or whatever, however you see it, the lab that you're working in,
Right.
the university or college that you're working for.
Yeah, I would even say another good advantage too is like if you know, let's say you've narrowed down your choices of schools. I didn't have this option because Twitter wasn't as popping as it is now when I was going to school, but you could like be in conversations of people whose lives you want to work in. Like if you see them
Hmm.
tweet about something or they have a paper that's cool, you can be like, "Oh, congratulations on the paper. I like the part where blah 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 blah." And that gets you on someone's radar more so than blind emailing, and asking what's your lab like. So,
Hmm.
that's definitely an advantage too, how you can, just use it to make connections and you never know where that'll go.
Yeah. I mean, and then we have like new communities that popped up, like the Black-ademic network of
Mhm.
communities where there's a lot of like intersectional spaces where you can find researchers and talk to them about what you're interested in. So I love that about Twitter.
Oh, yeah. There'll be a
Hmm.
random hashtag about a topic, and you just join on in and keep the conversation going.
Hmm.
Okay, so I am on social media. I've decided I want to go to grad school, have all the great advice in the world. What's the money looking like? What is the money talking about?
That depends on where you go. Yeah, it depends on where
Yeah.
you go. I mean, I think the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program, their number is around like $34,000 a year now,
Hmm.
for 3 years that you're
And they also
funded.
pay your tuition and,
Hmm.
do they pay fees? I don't know. That's a weird thing
Hmm.
here. Okay, so you might be this only school I know that make anyway. Yes, you can get funding to go to graduate school from the National Science Foundation. There's also GEM, which is another. Don't ask me the
Yeah,
acronym because
it's
it's
not really an acronym. The GEM
yeah, it used to be.
Consortium, it did. Yeah.
Yeah,
The GEM Consortium is an organization that brings together industry and government agencies to support students who are pursuing graduate degree programs, and it's used for underrepresented students um, in engineering and computing degree programs. And so you could be placed in a national lab, you could be placed, at a major corporation like Intel
yeah. I was
or
at IBM.
IBM, and they pay for a stipend for you, and then it's an agreement with the university. So there are specific places in the country that you can go and have that fellowship funding supported.
Yep.
So it does kind of come with stipulations, right? You're going to do some internships for the company that supports you,
But you get paid
but you
too.
get paid during those
Right.
internships.
That's on
So
top of the stipend they're already giving you.
yeah, so I like that program a lot. There's a lot of different fellowships out there that you can get.
Yeah, there's the Ford Foundation. That's another
Hmm.
where you can get it at probably like 3 different points in your career, at least
Hmm.
2 that I know of. Like when you're finishing, like they have one for, "Hey, I just got 1 more year left. I
Yeah,
just need to get out of here." And they have stuff for, just jumping into it. But take home point is if you're Black and a woman, and especially if you're from America, somebody's going to pay for you to go to grad school. Like
should.
somebody should, and most likely they will. A lot of people think that, oh, why would I go into more school after doing undergrad? I have all this debt. I'm going to accumulate more debt. Or if you didn't have debt in undergrad, why would I get a new loan? But that's not always the case. Likely there
Mm-mm.
is money out there for you. There's internal money. The person you work with might have a grant where you get a fellowship through the university. So there's so much money that
I
is
was
out there.
making over $40,000 like my first year. I don't know how that
Yeah,
happened. It
Jeremy
was
bought a
like
house as a grad student. I'm just saying, I know other people that have bought houses as grad students.
we
So
live in Florida, and at the time it wasn't being ridiculous.
yeah,
Now you can't really do that because the world is on fire. But anyways, I
but take home,
digress.
yeah. So there's lots of funding support there, but I want to talk about too, like having internal funding versus external funding and like the
Mm.
caveats there. So what are your thoughts, Jeremy?
Um, Child, this is a whole. Okay. So, for those of you who are listening and don't know, there's a couple of things that I think are important for me to say. One, I worked for the graduate school at my university, so I do have a little bit more perspective from a lot of graduate students, just because I intervened with a lot of them. And so, yeah, we'll just leave that there. Two, like Kyla mentioned, I knew everybody. So it was a different scenario for me than it might be for you. But I ended up with a lot of external funding my first couple of years in the program. And with external funding, your work that you're doing, like, how you're getting your paycheck, isn't tied to a specific research project typically.
Hmm.
So let's say I have a lab, right? And I have some grants that were awarded to do some specific things. And there are deliverables from the people who gave me those grants. Like
Right.
every year on this day, you have to have submitted a report.
About
So
your
that
progress.
means you
Yes.
have to show progress in that grant. So that means someone has to do that work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I have to be able to measure what was done at the end. So people who have money that's funded from the university are usually put on those grants
Mm-hmm.
to support them, making it through their program. And their job is to ensure that progress is made on that grant.
Right. And
That's
there's all
how it's
these
written.
milestones in place to be like, hey, we have made progress because we have to show progress. Like it's a
Well,
default kind of
in
thing.
the grant, you've put together a timeline of
Yep.
what you're going to deliver by what date. So, like, you've actually thought through these things and how much
Mm-hmm.
time it takes.
And the grad
So,
student is the research engine here. So it's
yeah.
like it's
And
almost
so the
like
grad
guaranteed
student's just
progress.
doing the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm over here and I just got money. So, yeah, you can help so and so out on that grant, and then you're going to help somebody else over here. And then, oh, by the way, I need to get this equipment set up in the lab. Can you handle that? So, you're doing all of these little things, which don't actually contribute as much to the big thing. And at the end of the day, you've done a lot of work, you've gotten a lot of different expertise, but have you really contributed meaningfully to the research?
Right.
Maybe not.
Do
And
you have a
so
defined dissertation project at this point?
probably not. And so sometimes people who have external funding get left behind because they're multitasking in different ways that a PhD student who's been given a specific measurable task has not been. And that was my story.
Yeah, and it's the advisor doesn't have any
Oh
incentive
yeah, they didn't
to,
he
yeah,
in my case, he cared, but he didn't have any real recourse to like do much. Like it was
yeah,
kind of like, well, this is just what it is. I
right.
don't have anything that you can work on that like we already have somebody doing that.
It's just like almost like free labor, basically. Like imagine if a big, huge FANG company or whatever their new name is now, there's all these people that they pay to work there, so they're gonna make sure those people do their job. But here comes someone who's just as talented and they say, I'm gonna work for free. They're not committed to anything you have going on, to your progression, to your
Mm-mm.
acquiring skills. I'm not saying that's everyone, but people generally put their effort towards things that they're gonna be accountable for, and
I floated for a while
same,
and I
same.
was like, listen, this isn't it. Like I know y'all see me over here trying asking questions
Right.
and I'm a extrovert. I'm a talker. I'm gonna tell you how I feel. So I was telling everybody everything, and
Mhm.
it didn't matter. So I would encourage you to get in writing what it is specifically that you're going to do, because that really helps make things real. And
Yeah,
they're supposed to do that, but it doesn't necessarily translate.
yeah,
There's
it's a
also
oh, go
oh
ahead. I was gonna say it's a
mhm,
blessing and a curse sometimes
yeah.
because, like, having your own funding, you can sort of pick what you want to work on, but your advisor has to agree on that thing too. So if you
Hmm.
pick something or to be in a lab where someone is like, "Well, I don't really do that," you're like, "I don't care. I want you to be my advisor." You got to deal with what comes with that afterwards. They may not be able to give you as great advice as another professor. It's kind of like you're just taking up space there. So it's great to
Hmm.
have the freedom of what you'd like to study, but you need to exercise caution in who you pick because not everyone's like that. Like I have a couple students who I either partially fund or don't fund at all, and someone else does, but everybody gets the same amount of attention because we have the same goal.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think so. Like, it does give you leverage, right? Like, I was like, I'm not happy here. I'm leaving, and I left,
Hmm.
and I could do that because I have money. And
Yep.
what y'all gonna do? So,
Who's gonna check me, boo?
so I switched, but in the conversations that I had with the person who I was switching to, I was like, I want to do work that's going to lead me to a PhD, so I can leave here. Like, ultimately, I really don't care at this point what it looks like. I just need it to be a PhD. And I spent about a year working on some stuff that didn't lead to that. And I was just like, you know what? What do you want me to do? Like, I don't care what it is that we do, but it's clear to me that what I want to do isn't what you want to do. And so we're just going to put that aside. And you're going to tell me what makes sense for you.
Right.
And I'm going to work on that.
Gasp, Jeremy, you're telling me that your dissertation work wasn't something that your heart just yearned to do since you were 5?
No, child, what? I was so mad. Like, I really, really, really love concrete. I know that's strange. Hold on a second. Let me just lean off screen for a second.
I thought you were about to go get a piece of concrete. Oh, and you are. For everybody who's listening, Jeremy just picked up a big old cylinder of concrete that she just happens
This
to have right at her
cylinder of
desk
concrete,
in her
isn't it
house.
beautiful? It's quite heavy. Was one that I made extra during my civil engineering materials course
Oh.
as an undergrad. I still have it because I was so excited that I made an extra one. Everybody was like, "Why are you doing this?" I was like, "I just love it so much. I'm so excited." So this is what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to do concrete research. I ended up doing asphalt research. I know to y'all, you're like, "That's not different." It's different, okay? And I'm not gonna tell you why, because you know what? I don't do that research anymore. Y'all can.
She don't live
Um,
there no more.
but you know, at some point, it's just like, I need this degree so I can do the things I want to do.
Yeah.
And I had conversations with the dean of our graduate school about making this transition. I was not really comfortable making the transition to a new lab. I knew that I needed to move. And he was like, "What you're going to do," this was a Wednesday, "what you're going to do is get a new advisor. And by Friday, I will know who that person is." And I
Wow.
was like, "But it's Wednesday." And he was like, "I'll see you on
I
Friday."
said what I said.
I walked out of there. I was shaking. I was like, "This
Oh
is
my
like what's
gosh.
happening." And
Wow. He
so
was not playing.
he was not playing. But what he said to me before he gave me the ultimatum was, "Look, it does not matter what your PhD is in. Nobody is going
Right.
to look at your PhD. Nobody's going to read your dissertation and check your credentials to see like, oh, she got a PhD that's about asphalt and not concrete, and so we can't hire her." Like,
Exactly.
because it's not about what your dissertation work is on. That's not what this is about. And I feel like a lot of people wrongly believe that's all it is.
Yeah, people get hung up on, oh, that's not my exact thing. The PhD shows that you have the ability to take a problem, take a question, see it through to a solution that makes sense. And that can be done in any capacity.
It's a way that you think differently
Hmm.
than other people. Like, the goal of it is for you to understand how to research something,
Right.
how to arrive at an answer, how to fill a void that no
Yes.
one else has filled in
And
a
how to
discipline.
analyze how well you filled that void.
Yeah. So, like, if I learn this method, I could take said method and apply it over here and over there and over there and like all these other places. So,
Yeah.
I work in engineering education now. That is not civil engineering. It's
Not at all.
definitely not civil engineering materials.
Yeah.
I was an experimentalist. I was in a lab making specimens and testing specimens. And now I talk to people. I don't get dirty no more.
I would say one criticism I hear when people try to discourage folks from getting the PhD is like, oh, you'll be so specialized in one thing that you can't get hired. And that is complete. The person who said
Wrong.
that don't have a PhD because clearly they do not know. Or if they have one, they're not using it the way that they should because you
100%.
you
I
can
have
do
so
anything.
many friends who are not doing whatever it is that they decided they were going to do when they got their PhD.
Yeah.
Like, so many. I have one whose research is in polymers in material science, and they work with ceramics now. Totally different
Right.
material, process is totally different. The application is totally different. They're not dealing with people
Yep.
and biomaterials. Now they're dealing with construction materials.
Yeah, my PhD's in computer science. I have papers and things that I like, for example, brain computer interfaces. You probably heard about it on one of our episodes. But I decided, oh, that sounds cool. It uses signal processing. I use signal processing. Guess what? Now I have 3 signal processing papers because I just decided that was interesting to me. So yeah, I study audio, but I also have a skill set that can be applied to other things. So,
Mm-hmm.
and people hire you because of the skill set, not necessarily the knowledge.
People hire people because they like people.
That too. That too. Be
Sometimes it doesn't
likable.
even
Don't
have
don't
to
be a
do
jerk.
with the
Though.
knowledge.
Yes, it's so important to be likable. Not saying you need to walk in the room and like shake every hand and say hi to everybody, but if you are a joy to work with, people will choose you over folks that you feel are more qualified or whatever to do things just because you're easier to work with.
Well, I think it's important to be teachable
Yeah,
and be open to learning because the people who you are calling experts, while we may have experiences that would lean to us being considered experts, they don't know everything.
sure don't.
And so ultimately our job as people with PhDs is to be continual learners and to adapt. And if you can't learn something, then I don't want to work with you because
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. Like, no. Some people are very rigid in how they think and they're not flexible. They don't even reflect on like their behaviors and things like that. I don't want to work with that person. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I agree 100%. Okay, so last thing we're gonna close out on is when you're in grad school, you're like, if you graduate undergrad, typically you're about 20, 21, 20, so no, 21, 22-ish, and you're in grad school getting your PhD for
23.
like 23. Well, you're in your 20s. We'll say that for most people. We do have non-traditional, we have folks that come back. But the question is, what happens to real life while you're in grad school? Like, do you just miss out on those years or
Oh my. The scandal. I felt like for a while, and this is just me, I just was watching my friends who went to industry like make real money
They
and
on
go
boats.
everywhere. Like y'all
Yes.
in Egypt, somebody's riding a camel,
Right.
y'all doing diving experiences with dolphins.
Right.
And I am with these rocks in a basement getting dirty. Like I can't even have my nails done. Look, I was so mad. I was big mad, y'all.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was just so much. It just felt like the world was happening, and I was just stuck. I was stuck. Is that how you felt, Kyla?
Yes, but I was that with rocks in the basement. That if that does
I'm
not
just
paint a
being
picture
real.
of how it felt, I felt like I was getting dirty in the basement with some rocks. But yeah, it felt the same way. Like people are getting married, achieving all these different milestones, and I'm like, I'm literally here looking at a computer screen, putting hot chocolate mix into my coffee because that's my
Mm-hmm.
crack and staying
Mm-hmm.
alive.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I felt like I was missing out, but then when I got out, I was like, I actually didn't miss much.
Girl,
But I
some of
made a
them
point to
people got
I was
divorced
about to say that
and
too. I was like, my cousin, I was telling him that one day when I was in my department, because he's like, about 5 years older than me. And I was like, oh, I feel like I'm missing out on life. Everybody's getting married. He's like, well, everybody my age getting divorced. So you ain't missing much.
look.
So, but I felt like, but I still tried to keep like a normal life. Like I had a set of friends that had nothing to do with the university. And like we were in like a dance group together doing like urban ballroom in Detroit. And like I would go on trips with them. And it was just a good chance to just kind of separate myself from the university and just be a human and be like, this is a thing that I enjoy. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I I got married in graduate school. I bought a house. I got a dog. So it's not like my life stopped. Like I was dating my husband the whole time pretty much. Like it I had a life. I was
Yes.
traveling and going places and doing things. It just wasn't as cool
But also,
because
people need to keep on lifing because I feel like people think, "Oh, I'm in grad school. I need to be so serious. I can't entertain anything outside." But that's
mm-mm.
so not the truth.
No, but also Rod got dirty in the lab.
He's
Every now and then it
a
was like,
supportive husband.
I'm gonna train you. You're gonna do some of this
Exactly.
work.
That was your
Um,
first lab student. Wow.
that's true. I should ask him about his experience. But I just, you have a lot of friends because it's really hard to go through something so challenging alone.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's just like the communal, I'm gonna complain today. And then sometimes it's like, let's go to St. Augustine for the weekend on the beach, get a little house, everybody sharing.
yeah.
We grill somewhere, we did a lot of relaxing too, a lot of birthday party celebrations. My whole lab was a bunch of like Europeans for the most part,
Oh,
and
they know how to have birthdays.
and they all liked cooking and
Oh, that's
drinking.
great.
So we would have like food themed parties,
Mhm.
and it was like everybody would be responsible for a dish, and it would just be like really good, like just to be around. They're like my lab family, you know
Yeah,
and we still stay in touch. Like they're all over the world now. Most of them went back to where they were from, and we still keep in contact.
yeah. I would add too, like, it's so important. That's why we mention community so much because life is lifing the whole time you
Hmm.
are in grad school. So the people who you're there with, who are you're commiserating with, you need to make sure y'all are in community because you're going to stay in each other's lives. You don't just magically forget each other once
Nope.
you're done. Like almost like, what do they call it when people bond over like a trauma? There's a term for that, but I feel like that is it. When you have a trauma bond, maybe that's it. I don't know.
Girl, I don't know.
But, going through this experience, like, you see each other at your highs, at your lows, and, being there to support each other, like, to me, I'm like, yes, I wasn't doing all the things that I felt like everyone who hadn't gone to grad school was doing, but I was still living life and going through those phases.
And I'll say this, like I think some of the friends that I had who were doing all the things, all most of them have said to me like, I wish that I would have done what you did.
Wow.
And I think that's kind of weird because I'm like, sometimes I wish I would have done what y'all did. But it's kind of telling that like how you walk through something, people see it.
Yeah,
And
and they
so now
notice to
people
pay
are
attention.
looking, yeah, they're looking at my life now and they're like, I was a good life choice for you.
Yeah.
And it
Um,
could have been for them too, maybe. Who knows?
Everybody's choice is right for them at the time.
Hmm.
All right, so stay tuned for part 3 of our series. It's going to be about mentoring, but yeah,
Mentoring.
yes, Jeremy's so excited about it. This is her whole thing, her whole research topic. So we are going to get into it. So let us know actually how you like this series that's going on because we got a whole Instagram. I know the whole outro is going to come on next, but you need to hear me saying it. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have, Twitter. Let us know. Like if you're listening, just jump on one of those and obviously there's probably a tweet or something or a message about this episode. Let us know what you think. Like, do you like this series? Y'all want us to just stop? Are we just telling
Yeah,
y'all
because
stuff you already
y'all
know?
don't need to know anything else about me for real.
Thank you, everybody. All right, I'm turning my thing off.